Welcome, Rob.
Thank you.
We're not ignoring you. We're just waiting it going. We're going to give you a chance to introduce yourself. So,
All right.
yeah, we usually give the new people a silent treatment for a while until they get on board with our philosophies.
All right.
We bend your will. We bend your way of thinking. Right, Tony?
Yeah, right.
Isn't that how the Democrats operate?
That's how they operate.
Remember, I told you I'd bring you to that big warehouse in Washington where they store all the guns they took from all you law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, really.
Well, it is 8 o'clock showing. For the interest of time, I am going to get this thing going. I promise to get it moving as quick as possible for our guys that got to leave early. So before we start roll call, if we can, Robert, if you want to just introduce yourself and if you could give us a pronunciation of your last name, because there's been some debate about that, and just talk about yourself for a second, that'd be great.
All right. Well, I'm Robert Carone. Sounds like Corona, but spelled a little differently. I am lived in Marquette for about 6 years now. We were in Chicago before that for 20 some years. Sort of reached the apex of our careers in Chicago and wanted to do something different. And my wife is originally from Marquette, and we ended up here. So it's been a fast 6 years. We really love it up here. We became part of Vangos as my wife's father started it, and it's been a challenge learning a new industry and adapting to living in Marquette. So. That's about it. I'm happy to be a part of this. I've sort of waited a bit of time before engaging in things outside the business, but I'm super excited about this and ready to get going.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you joining the board, and I know everyone else does also, and we look forward to having you here. With that, we'll get on to first agenda item, roll call. Becky, if you want to just note everyone that's here based off the video. I know Megan's not on yet. We will, if need to, we will, talk about excused, unexcused at the end. Maybe she's just running late, though. That'd be my.
She's coming in right now. She's just in the waiting room.
Perfect. Well, as she's moving on, we will move on also. Do we have any additions or subtractions or anything from the agenda?
Not for me.
Okay. And if we don't, if everyone's had a chance to take a look at it, can I get a motion to approve it, please?
Tasky, I'll move that we approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor of approval, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nobody opposed. I'm assuming Sean is not there. We have nobody here for public comment, so we're going to move on. Consent agenda. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at your packets. The minutes from 114, our bills for approval and financial reports. If there's any questions about that, we can take those now. Otherwise, we can field an agenda or field a motion, I should say.
I'll move to approve those.
Support.
We have a motion and support to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business. Becky, why don't you go ahead and speak on that?
I would love to. So our Washington Street 100 block reconstruction project is well underway as far as the planning goes. I've been working with the engineering department on kind of tweaking their plans a little bit. They sent me a 95% review set that I looked at last week. I was looking specifically at things like tree placement and placement of the pay stations and that type of thing. We made some slight modifications, but overall, I mean, their plans looked really good. They were very, very thorough, very well done. Tree-wise, we'll end up just having one less tree than we do now, but the majority of them will be replaced. A number of them are infected and having to be replaced anyway. I did share a copy of the plans with you guys if you had a chance to look them over. I mean, if you see anything glaring, I welcome your feedback, but otherwise I think they're solid and they're good to go. As of right now, pending finalization of the plans, it's looking like the project is going out to bid in 2 weeks, which is about a month ahead of schedule. And I believe it's the first city project to go out to bids for this construction season. And again, just to kind of touch on the timeline of the project, we're looking to start construction as early as we can, May 3rd, if possible. And then there's a very aggressive schedule for construction of 5 to 6 weeks. Again, looking to be done then mid-June. We've reached out to the businesses, asked for their feedback, their concerns, their hours of operation so that we can ensure access, pedestrian access to their businesses during their open hours. Really haven't gotten any negative feedback in that regard. It's either been neutral or very positive. So I'm encouraged by that. And I think that, I mean, at this point in time, we're doing everything we can to make this project as seamless as possible. And again, just, welcome businesses to bring their concerns up now so we can address them and hopefully have a smooth project and a big, beautiful street to show after it's done.
You understand that's not going to happen, right?
Oh, it's going
Rebecca? There'll be somebody who has something.
Anyway.
Huh?
We're going to do our best to make it happen. Anyway.
Well, I know you're going to do your best, but these businesses, once they get their actual situation in front of them, I mean, just be prepared that there's going to be last minute challenges.
Well, I'm aware, but we're up for the challenge.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
anyone
else have comments?
I'll make a comment if you don't mind. That I'm happy that our engineering department is now a functioning cooperative agency, as it wasn't before necessarily. And as hard as we tried in the past to make it happen, it took a change of personnel to make it work. And I'm happy to hear, Becky, that they're working well with you.
Yes,
So.
I very much concur with that. They've been very, very good to work with. In fact, I was having a conversation yesterday with the city engineer as far as their annual sidewalk project. I'm sure you guys have noticed, but down on Barriga Avenue in front of GEI, we have some of those old pavers that are very deteriorated. And in one area, it's even like a little kind of sunken in. And then another area, similar condition, is up right at the intersection of Rock and Front Street, where we have the sign, "Welcome to Downtown." Those are in equally poor condition. And so I was talking with Mick Kilpel yesterday, and I said, well, what would be the chances of including that in the sidewalk repair project? Because I think, down the road, I know 4 or 5 years, whenever we get to Barriga, that we'll be doing a larger project in that street. However, I also am not entirely comfortable with the condition of that sidewalk as it is right now, and certainly don't want to put off making any repairs until then. So I think this would be a nice option to make that more pedestrian safe in a cost efficient way until we're able to do something larger. So he did say that that would be doable if we have our maintenance staff pull those pavers ourselves. We would be looking at about an additional $7,000 to have that sidewalk replaced. So I would like to pursue that option. I don't think I need board approval to do that since it's under the
Right.
But just to give you guys that notification that I would like to do that. And again, I'm very thankful for him to consider including that in his project.
Yeah, I think it's great. We'll move on. Let's go to the next new business if we can.
Sure. Okay, the next thing I had on the list is our paid holiday policy. You all have received a copy of it. The way it reads right now, we have 8 recognized paid holidays as DDA staff. We also have what we refer to as 5 floating holidays, and a little bit of history on those. I don't know the entire history, but within my time here at the DDA, we've had these 5 days. At one point in time, they were able to be used at each individual employee's discretion. that was problematic in that we had, we had our sick time, our holiday pay, we had our comp time, we had our floating holidays, and it made it very difficult for staff to kind of keep track of all that and apply their time off accordingly. So if you guys remember, I believe it was 3 years ago, we had changed that policy so that those 5 days get assigned by the executive director at the beginning of the year for the rest of the year. So in essence, it would be taking a look at, okay, what other days might we use as paid holidays? And three of them being President's Day, Good Friday, and the Friday after Thanksgiving were pretty consistent, which would also be in line with the city's paid holidays. They have 11, where we currently have the 8, and those are the 3 additional days that they have. But then those other 2 floating holidays are selected rather arbitrarily, just because we have them and so we want to use them. And so a lot of times that ends up being maybe the Friday before weekend or Labor Day weekend, which gives staff a 4-day weekend. But in a lot of ways, that's too much, or it's too much of a length of time, considering we're basically staffed all the time here, because obviously we have to be doing the maintenance downtown 7 days a week. So it creates problems as far as selecting days that are going to work across the board for everybody. We have 2 very different environments here with our office staff versus our maintenance staff. Another issue that we've run into with that is over the winter, if we have one of these floating holidays and our maintenance staff is obviously subject to having to come in when it's snowing to do the snow removal, at which point then, if they have to come in on one of those floater holidays, they're getting paid double time, which has caused an added expense. I guess to get to the point, I don't think those additional 2 floating holidays are entirely necessary. What I would rather do is just align our paid holiday policy with the cities, add those 3 days, the President's Day, Good Friday, Friday after Thanksgiving, and call that good. So it would avoid having to make that assignment annually, and it would just be straightforward. These are our paid holidays. So what I'm asking the board for is just approval of that recommendation if you see fit.
So I think what you're talking about, Becky, is personal days, more or less. I mean, people have, I mean, they can use them whenever they want, these 2 days.
No, not
No.
anymore. No.
But they would. They are currently, though.
No.
No?
Years ago they were. Now it's just 2 days that I pick randomly
Oh, okay.
to be paid holidays.
All right.
So basically, Becky is looking to align the paid holidays with what the city is actually doing currently. Sounds like it's a discussion I think we've had in the past where not only our PTO but our holiday paid schedule has kind of been a little bit off and different than what the city's was. So I think this is a step in moving everything kind of in the right direction and make it mirror it. I can definitely say I support everything you've put together, Becky. I'd like to hear feedback from everyone else, though, certainly.
I have a question about it. So my understanding of paid holidays was it was to provide holiday days for people whose religion isn't Christian, I guess, right? So if they practice something else that they don't celebrate Christmas and Easter, they have these times off to celebrate whatever religious holiday they do have. So I don't know if that would be a problem for anybody currently, but it might be in the future. Just, I don't know, something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, basically you're taking 2 days away, right? I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. And I'm wondering what the pushback is going to be,
Yeah, that was going to be my question too, with the, how do you think that'll go over with 2 less essentially vacation days out there?
Well, I guess to that, I hear what you're saying. To that point, I would say we already have a very generous paid time off policy. And also I have discussed this with staff and really haven't had much opposition, because quite honestly, those 2 extra days end up being more problematic than anything.
They get other time off though, besides these holidays, is what you're saying. They get other vacation days.
Oh, yeah.
Right, they get paid time off.
This is just above and beyond their allotment for paid time off annually.
So just so the board is aware too, because we have so many new members, the PTO schedule here that we have for the people that work at the DDA, it is something that since I've joined the board has been noticed as a little bit problematic because we allow so much carryover. Some people, not all, Becky's the person we'll single out here. Some people are carrying over hundreds and hundreds of hours of PTO every year. And so when it comes to PTO and people having time off that they need, with the current workforce we have, there shouldn't be a problem, especially if she's gauged the interest here. What this is simply doing is clerically matching what's going on with the city of Marquette.
If I may, I don't know that she's matching what's going on with the city of Marquette because they have, from what I understood from Becky's talking earlier, is that they have more paid time off days, and she's reducing their schedule now from 5 to 3. I think that's going to be a problem for her from the staff. Doesn't the city have 8? Didn't you say that city has 8?
No, the city has 11. We have 8.
Oh, okay.
So I'm taking 3 of those floater holidays and assigning them to those 3 days to match what the city has, and then eliminating the other 2. So in essence, then we would have 11 paid holidays in line with the city.
I think it's a good way to go. I mean, if you want to do it and get things straight, get over the hump and move on. I think there's no doubt that as a city, we provide plenty of time off. There's always a push by staff to get more if they can. But, I think, if you gauge the feelings of the staff and you think this is a good time to do it, let's take the step. I support taking the step. So.
I do as well, and I feel like it's important to mirror what the city's doing since we're a city entity, and also I feel like there's been other increases over the past couple of years, like they have better health insurance the past 2 years than before. So while we may be taking away 2 floater holidays, we've also increased other benefits to being on the DDA staff where we could. So it kind of all evens out in the end, I feel like.
Right. And I think we need to look at this a little bit differently. This isn't just a traditional floating holiday that we might have in our own workplaces. For instance, where I work, big company, we get to decide whatever floating holiday we want to use every year. Becky's stating that she has to assign these dates to mirror for the organization. So that becomes a problem, especially when we look at holidays and having people downtown working. So mirroring what the city's doing makes total, complete sense, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Any more discussion on this, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept Becky's recommendation to align the paid holidays with that of the city. And that includes eliminating the 2 remaining floating days.
We have a motion. Jim with support. Any further discussion on this before we vote? Take that as a no. All those in favor of supporting the motion, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that, Becky. If we could go to committee reports now. Looks like we've had committees actually meet, which is great.
We've had a busy week. They met this week, actually, so.
So I guess I'll get things started with the Executive Personnel Committee. So just a little bit of feedback to you guys and kind of what I've been doing with Becky. One of the things that I wanted to do since I took over as chair, I wanted to make sure that, I kind of continued what I know Tony had been doing and keeping a good line of communication with Becky. So she constantly has someone to talk to. So I've kind of reached out to Becky to, schedule bi-weekly calls with her where we can just kind of BS and she can tell me what's going on day to day. So we have a good understanding of what's going on, and, you know, things we can do to actually help and, you know, support her as needed. I've given her some literature on some stuff that she can kind of fill out on her time, which also will help us when the executive committee meets, so we can see what she's done for the year, as opposed to just getting at year end and saying, yeah, you did a good job. To me, I'm the type of person, I'd like to see it on paper and see what you've done, and, you know, see what she's accomplished and what her staff's accomplished, because those are all rewarding things that I think are very important to kind of document throughout the year. So that's a little bit about what I've been doing in that sense. But in our conversations, a couple things have kind of come up, which kind of prompted me to know that we need to schedule an executive committee meeting. And basically, one of the things Becky and I discussed was kind of having executive committee meetings on a quarterly basis. That way, you know, we're constantly giving her feedback. She's constantly giving us feedback about her personnel, her job, and kind of what's going on with the staff and everything else. So I know the executive committee members are here, so I'm hoping to set the meeting right now as we sit for Friday the 5th, and I'm willing to work at whatever time you guys would like. I know that we
Friday. What the hell's wrong with you?
Well, we can do Thursday also, the day before. Or we can, frankly, Mike, we can do whatever day works for you. I know it's a difficult schedule. I'm just hopeful that we can get this meeting in prior to our next board meeting.
Yeah, I can. Friday the 5th of March.
Yep.
Hang on.
So just to clarify who's on the executive committee, it should be Mike.
It's also Eric
and
also.
Eric.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm pretty open that Friday, so whatever works for Mike, I can make work.
And what I can do too is I can email the both of you guys. That way Mike's not, I know Mike does all the scheduling through his scheduler. So I don't want him to have to try to figure it out here. We may be going longer than need be. But basically, just so the board knows, a couple of things that, you know, we hope to discuss. You know, basically there has been some need for some potential additional employment here. Staff is kind of getting overwhelmed with what we have going on with the farmers market, and I want everyone to have an understanding just as what's going on, because we have so many new members. What happened is Becky was our assistant director. She became full-time director when Mana left. We never replaced that position. Essentially, we had another full-time employee also that left that we hired with a part-time employee. So our staff has went down. And it seems like we're kind of having that staff be a little overwhelmed. So Becky and I have been discussing the need for additional staff and maybe refining a couple roles in the organization. So I want to get that worked out with the executive committee and have something to present to the board for the next meeting, so we are all on par and all on page with what potentially needs to happen.
Can 9 o'clock on that Friday work in the morning?
Works for me. Does that work for you, Eric?
Yeah, that works great.
Okay,
Well, good. We're set up then.
I could do that.
Becky, does that work for you?
That works for me. And I would also add that I do have a staffing situation that I would like to discuss.
Do you want to discuss it there or here?
Not here. I would prefer to discuss it there, but.
Perfect. No problem. Okay, great. Well, that's all I have for the executive personnel. We can move to the farmers market. And as we do that, if kind of speaking on what we've done before, if we can have board members kind of speak as opposed to Becky. So I'll ask Jim to kind of recap what we talked about at our farmers market meeting a little bit if we can.
Well, the biggest thing was, you know, the COVID situation, whether we should, how we're going to do online and how we're going to do the physical market, and costs associated with that. Obviously this year, the farmers market lost more money because of less revenue, not because of more expenses. The expenses are kind of fixed. So it's just the loss of revenue that kind of affected it. So we're kind of trying to figure out how we're going to do this. And Also, Becky talked about having the farmers market be independent of the DDA and setting up their own structure and employees, and kind of putting it all under one umbrella and letting the farmers market take care of everything, and we will contribute a sizable sum to it. And I don't know if Becky had looked to see about the bylaws of the farmers market to see if there was any time limit on how long the farmers and artisans can be appointed to that. Did you happen to find that by any chance?
I did. I dug through and I found some previous minutes from when we had those conversations. So I've shared those with Sarah, and between the two of us, excuse me, we're going to be drafting up some bylaws. It did say, now initially when we created the vendor representative structure for the committee, we started with 3 board members and then 3 vendor representatives, which eventually somehow transpired to 5 vendor representatives being the recommendation that was brought to the board. So according to our DDA board minutes, there would be allotted 5 vendor representatives, and then myself and Sarah, and then the 3 board reps. And then it does say that annually the vendor representatives would be recommended by the farmers market manager for appointment by the DDA board.
Well, that's good. That's in there then.
Yeah. So as Jim mentioned, we are looking to draft up some bylaws for the farmers market committee, and we'll use that as the basis of that document, but we'll look to have that prepared in the next few days. And as far as what Jim had just mentioned with having the market go independent, that just to clarify, that would be like a long-term strategy. We're looking at maybe a 3 to 5 year time frame to start working toward that, but with that being the ultimate goal.
Mike, do you have any comments further? I know you were there and had a lot to say too.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
No,
You
yeah,
left early.
I had another meeting. I've got a multi-million-dollar operation to run here. No, I agree with Jim. I mean, the issue is that they had a loss this year, which obviously the DDA has to probably absorb in some shape or form. And I see it as a temporary situation. If we didn't have the COVID, according to Becky's statistics, and we would have operated at a normal situation or normal market, we would have been well within our budget, probably under budget a little bit. So I think, that's important to realize that I think what we're looking at here is a temporary situation with the market and the recommendations. We have some thoughts as a committee, as DDA members to the committee, but I think we need to spend time listening to the market people for their input under the same circumstances. So they may make suggestions that they want to do or they think might help, and I think we can probably come to some kind of understanding, at least for the next year, because I think it's fairly obvious we're going to have a goofy market again this summer. And then after that, hopefully we'll be back to normal. But I think the way we have it set up, we'll be fine without COVID. It's just a matter of getting through the COVID situations.
Right. Which, if I could add, is mildly discouraging because we made so many steps forward to get this market to a place of solvency that we were ready to go into this market season and just really knock it out of the park. And then COVID hit. And so it was like going back 2 steps. And then obviously that did have a significant impact on our revenues, largely because we were limited in the number of vendors that we could have due to physical distancing requirements.
As Becky knows.
Am I still there?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, because I just lost you guys here on my computer.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have an appointment at 8:30, so I'm gonna have to leave for now. So
that's okay.
filled in. Sorry.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you,
Hey.
Jim.
Hi,
All
Jim.
right.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
So just kind of giving some feedback too, because I think this is important that our new members understand kind of what's going on with the farmers market. The farmers market, over the last few years, we've noticed the farmers market was losing a lot of money for our organization. We were up well in the upper $20,000 range. We as a board kind of came to the agreement that, yes, this is something we need to be contributing to. It's important for our downtown. It promotes business, which is, you know, what we're here to do. But we needed to come to a more comfortable number of not losing so much revenue. And we agreed on $13,000 would be a fair amount. Basically, Becky was able to kind of put together some numbers for our meeting and determine that had things ran at a normal rate, we would have been right at that $13,000 mark. Because it didn't, because we weren't getting the same amount of revenue because we didn't have as many vendors. Things shifted to online. We had to charge things differently because of that to keep it as fair as possible for the farmers. The amount we were at was somewhere around what, 28? Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So even though we're still at that mark where we've kind of been, we've put some changes in place that are really starting to right the ship. And if you look at the numbers on paper, to me, it looks very promising as we move forward. And I think we all left that meeting, you know, very hopeful with COVID, hopefully changing at some point. But even if it doesn't, we have people in place that are kind of making changes that are going to help with that farmers market organization. So.
Right. And I would just add to that, we were fortunate to have this snapshot because last year, just prior to COVID hitting, we had already opened up our application period for the market and it had closed. So what we have available to us is a very clear idea of how many vendors we would have had participating. And even, you know, if they were wanting to rent a tent, if they were wanting to participate in the Wednesday market, the full season market, the late season market. And so that's where I was able to glean that information from is, okay, the revenue situation is what it is because of COVID, but hindsight 2020, had we been able to have the market as we anticipated, that's where we would have fallen into that acceptable range of was $11,000 that we would have had as a deficit, keeping in mind that $13,000 goal. So we would have made our goal in essence is what I'm saying. So yeah. I do think that if we continue on the road that we're going with the changes that we have put in place, that we will be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big things with the market, but for the sake of time, I guess we can move on. Why don't we go to our business development and promotions group? And I don't know who's on that group, but if any of you wants to speak on what you're talking about, that'd be awesome.
That would be Nicole, Eric, and Megan.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can talk about, I'll give a recap what we talked about. A lot of it was just reviewing all of the events that are normally happen and if they're able to still happen in what capacity with the COVID restrictions. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on. So looking at Restaurant Week and how many businesses were comfortable participating, music on 3rd, Blueberry Fest, the car show, and then looking at doing some other smaller type events. And then let's see, the Matty movie series, what they're doing with showing the movies on the Bluff Street ramp is another topic. And what is it, the Marquette Marathon? Is that what it was? Changing the race route's going to be changed, so it's not going to end up on 3rd Street. So that is good. And I think is that most of it?
Yeah, I think that covers it. We did talk about Spring Restaurant Week that we're looking to host sometime in April. We sent out a survey to all the restaurants to glean their level of interest in participating and when they would prefer to do that. So it seemed as though toward the end of April was what would be preferable for most. So we will look to do that again. We typically like to have at least 10 restaurants participating, and based on the survey results, the interest was there. So that'll be the next event that we do. Blueberry Festival, we had talked specifically about scaling it back and bringing it more back to its roots of focusing on the businesses and the restaurants downtown, as opposed to bringing in outdoor vendors and really packing the streets. And this would be in an effort to kind of control the crowds to a manageable and safe level. Other events, we talked about music on 3rd and possibly extending that as far as where we're having musicians. It's a very popular event, and a lot of times we have bands playing on the sidewalk. And when we have bands there and then groups of people, it's obviously a very congested type situation. So we want to avoid that and look at maybe putting bands in parking lots on 3rd Street or spaces where we would have a bit more opportunity to expand, and possibly bringing it into the core downtown more, just to be able to still have the event, but in a safer capacity. As far as the Maddie movie series, you guys remember last year when they started with a couple of different movies. They will be coming back to us with a proposal for this year. They would like to do another series of 7 movies starting in April and then through the end of the year. So we had some conversation about at what point does it become prudent for us as a DDA to have some sort of a rental fee associated with their use of the parking lot. Bye, Tony, thank you. As opposed to us kind of providing that as a complimentary venue. So
Are they open to the idea, or is it just us talking about it?
It's just us at this point. They haven't come with an official request yet, but just in the conversations that we've been having, if it's going to be that number of events, if it warrants charging a rental fee.
And I think what Becky pointed out in our meeting was that there is some maintenance costs that we incur in order for them to host that event, like putting up cones and signage and closing off the parking lot. So we are paying the maintenance staff in order to accommodate their event. And if it's going to be 7 movies or maybe more, then, you know, they should at least be paying for that maintenance cost that the DDA incurs.
I would think that sounds reasonable. You know, or some fee, you know.
I would too, because they are profiting off of it.
Right. And then if there's any other organization that wants to rent out that parking lot for something else in the future, then it's established and it's not just like this particular group is getting it for free, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point.
And we had talked, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, but I believe it was $50.
Yeah, that was the number we kind of came up with.
Which is more than reasonable.
Yeah, that's crazy reasonable. I might rent it just to have a party there. It'd be awesome.
Are we still going to have some insider input into what movies they show? Because that was a big problem last year.
Yes, in fact, that's another point. What we've done is we've composed an application process, which is very thorough and is reflective of the city's event support request, where essentially what it's going to be is a twofold process, where if somebody has an idea of an event that they're looking for DDA support, they would complete section A, which is just a general idea of, okay, this is what we would like to do, which we would look at administratively here in the office and say, okay, is this a feasible idea or not? If it is, we would invite them to complete section B, which is much more thorough and requires a lot more information, very in-depth as far as what their plans are, what, you know, if they need licensing, what their safety measures are, their setup requirements, like everything is very completely outlined, so that then that's something we could bring, you know, to the board and say this is what they would like to do, and have all of our questions answered there in this one document. So that's what they're working on filling out right now.
Okay.
Awesome. Anything else from the three of you on the business development and promotions? Awesome.
That summed it up pretty good.
Great. Well, why don't we go ahead and move to parking then? Whoever wants to speak on that may.
Well, I'll speak to that because we haven't actually met yet. However, we do have our meeting coming up February 25th at 8 a.m. for those of you who are on the parking committee. I would encourage you to review the downtown plan, in particular the parking study update portion of that plan prior to that meeting, because there are some recommendations there that I think would be easily implementable and things that we could put into place right away. And so we'd like to have some conversations about those items and get some of those recommendations moving. Also, we're really at a place now that we have to move forward with our replacement plan for meters and pay stations. I've been in very close contact with our vendor as far as the pay stations. He also does have individual meters available, so he's gotten me information on that. And I have invited him to participate in that meeting just to give us a rundown of the meters and to speak to the benefits of pay stations and his particular products, so that we have, you know, a good idea moving forward that this is what's best for the organization and is the solution to our parking needs, at least for the time being. It's always difficult with these high-tech meters because they become obsolete so quickly, and that's what we're facing right now, is that the meters we have on the street are quickly reaching their sunset of life. So we look to discuss that some more. Really, that's it for parking.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
You're going to be hearing, and if you haven't heard already, that the housing committee that the commission put together is, in order to create density, is going to be looking at the winter parking ban. And there's talk of eliminating it. There's talk of modifying it. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but just to give you a heads up that discussion is out there, and it's going to be a controversial discussion. It's going to be a hot topic because in my opinion, the nighttime winter parking ban really adds to the ability of this community to function well in the wintertime. It's, keeps the streets clean. It keeps emergency access available. I mean, there's a whole slew of reasons to keep it, but just letting you know that the discussion is out there. And at some point, I would think the DDA parking committee will be asked to throw in their 2 cents. So I know that they're going to be, the committee is going to be talking to the traffic and parking committee for the city and department heads and things like that. So I would assume the DDA might be given the opportunity to weigh in.
I would hope so. I would like to be part of those conversations.
Well, if you're not, I would remind somebody.
Okay, thank you.
In the future. So.
Yeah, I do think that could have some pretty significant ramifications on downtown as far as clearing of the streets and the sidewalks. And I mean, not to mention loss of revenue for the parking permits that we do have for overnight parking. So, yes.
It's kind of funny because what I hear from some of our commissioners is, well, they do it in New York. I mean, New York, it works. They do every other night, different side of the street. I said, well, they do it there, but I don't think it works. And New York really has no other choice. I mean, I hope I'm not insulting anybody by saying this, but we can't even recycle glass in the city.
I had the same thought, honestly.
How could we remember what side is our night to park on which side of the street? I'm just being a jerk about it. I'm sorry.
Well, snow only falls one way. So tomorrow it's going to be on the left side, and then next week it'll be on the right side.
Yeah. Well,
Don't forget that.
I mean, even with the regular plowing that we do on a good snowy winter, our streets get narrow. And a snowplow getting through without parking sometimes is even difficult. So.
Right. And I mean, imagine particularly on that 100 block of Washington, if people are parked there on the street and the plow is trying to go through and they're burying those vehicles, and then the vehicle owner comes out and they're trying to shovel their vehicle out in the middle of the traffic. And where is that snow going? It's going right back into our sidewalks. And so it would be a never ending cycle of snow removal for our maintenance staff. I mean, it would be a nightmare.
It sounds entertaining to me. Can we put cameras downtown? It's awesome.
We have enough
Well-
issues with our maintenance staff. I don't want to throw that in there too.
There's no doubt.
We might have nobody left.
Do we have any further discussion on parking? I'm sure we could talk about this all. I know I could. I mean, it's goofy.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Okay. Well, why don't we get your director's report, Becky?
Okay, well, I do have a few things to mention. I wanted to provide an update on our board membership. Obviously, we have Robert with us again. Welcome. We also have our resident position that has been vacant. We have received two, or I should say the city's received 2 applicants for that position. So I would imagine that probably at the next city commission meeting, Mike, one or the other would be appointed. And we should have somebody on board then for our March meeting, and we'd be back at full capacity here on the board after quite some time, which is great, or at least until June, as it seems with Tony.
Can you and I talk sometime about those 2, who they are? And
Yes.
I don't know who they are, so.
Yes, maybe this afternoon if they're available.
Sure.
Okay.
Make sure you keep both names since Tony's leaving.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt to have 2 residents either.
I believe
they might want to park on the street.
You never know.
I believe the applications are kept on file for 6 months. Mike, is that right?
Yeah, we do.
Good. Okay, and then also at our meeting last month, Tony had mentioned wanting to have some sort of recognition sent to the board members that we've lost in recent months. So I have done that. I had plaques done up for Karen, Greg, Sean, and Jack, and sent them out on the board's behalf with a nice note. I mean, otherwise, obviously we're meeting via Zoom, so there's not going to be a time to present them with it in person. I did get a nice text back from Sean. He was very appreciative, said he's hung it on his wall and that he very much appreciated being part of this group and that he misses us. So I just wanted to pass that along.
You shouldn't have sent one to Sean. What was he here, like 4 months?
Here.
Seems like a cost we should not have been.
And all he did was complain about the guitar player. So.
It's true.
And also, speaking of boards, so I was approached by the Michigan Downtown Association and asked to consider applying to be on their board. And that's an association of DDA directors and downtown managers from across the state. They said they don't currently have any representation from the UP and wondered if I might be willing to fill that position. So I'm very happy to have been asked. I have submitted my application. They're looking right now at changing some of their bylaws and maybe modifying their membership to have different levels. I believed that to be, and I wasn't part of their meeting obviously, but in my conversations with the director, the amount of travel would be potentially an issue, not only for me, but for others in the northern UP, and how they want to move forward as far as possibly offering a virtual option versus having to drive down for the meeting. So I will continue to monitor that and see what happens. But I mean, if they are willing to have me, I'm certainly very happy to participate and represent the UP in that regard.
Good.
They have
Good.
also asked me to be a panelist for one of their spring workshops discussing events downtown in the face of COVID and, you know, having to make those modifications and what we've done that's been successful. So again, very, very happy that they've reached out in that regard too. Otherwise, I wanted to give you guys an update. I know that our TIF expansion on 3rd Street is high priority for the board and for myself. So I have begun doing some research into what that would entail, really delving into the legislation as far as the requirements and the process for doing so. I've reached out to some folks who have experience with that, colleagues from around the state. So I just wanted you to know that I'm starting those conversations. I'm doing my homework, and I hope to have some more information to bring to the March board meeting as far as how we can move that forward. So just FYI that's in the works. And finally, I just wanted to mention, you guys probably heard on TV6 that Veridia has purchased the Flagstar Bank building. And it's my understanding that the bank is staying there and Travel Marquette is staying there, that they are planning on putting a restaurant in there. And they talked about an IT firm of some sort. And the other thing is there's a group of economic development organizations locally that are looking to kind of move in there and have a shared work environment set up. And they've applied for a couple of different grants to be able to do that. So that would be like Invest UP and Smart Zone, maybe Northern Initiatives, the LSCP. I mean, there's conversations happening in that regard as far as moving into that space, which, I mean, obviously my mind right away goes to parking and what kind of impact that may have on our parking system. But I mean, more so, I'm happy to see that building be purchased and be utilized to a much fuller potential. I don't know if you guys have seen the upstairs, but it's a tremendous amount of office space that's been sitting empty for years. So I think this will be a good thing for us.
Awesome.
And that's all I had for my director's report.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Becky. I don't see Sean on, and I'm assuming we have no one in the waiting room, so there's no public comment.
Sean is there, he's just not his face.
Hey, perfect. He said no one's there. That's all we needed to hear. I guess we can get to board member comment. I'll start with our city manager if I can first.
I'm really good this morning.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
Nothing. Thank you.
All right. How about you, Nicole?
Sick. Okay. Welcome to our newest member, Robert. Congratulations for getting on the board and thanks for participating. It's always good to see new faces and new enthusiasm. I was really happy about our business promotions and development meeting. I thought we had some really good discussion and I'm super excited to see some events rejoin the calendar for this year. Hopefully we're moving forward with those and we don't get shut down again. And then as far as on the restaurant side of things, Lanyap reopened last week for in-dining service. Everything has gone really well. We've seen a lot of support, everyone following the rules and capacity limits. So on our end, everything has been positive and we look forward to the governor's announcement next week. Hopefully it continues to increase and we don't move backwards. I think that most everyone in the district too that I've seen has been following the rules as well. There's been a few concerns with a couple of establishments in the district, and I just didn't know as the DDA board if we should reach out to those places or like a friendly reminder email about what the restrictions and capacity limits are, because I'd hate to see all of us following the rules and then some of us not and ruining it kind of for the rest of us. So I didn't know kind of where we thought we should stand on, not so much as enforcement, because I know that's like more of a police issue, but I didn't know if there should be like a little friendly reminder email or something like that. And it's mostly later at night and it's mostly just bars. But it is concerning from some things that I've seen where there's lots of crowding, lots of non-mask wearing, lots of groups of people standing outside the front entrance, or if we should just kind of let it ride and see what happens. What do you guys think?
I can add just you reminded me of something, and I know it's outside the DDA, but the
nickel,
the wood nickel's been shut down.
Yeah.
The license was pulled yesterday. I mean, they're not shut down. They can still serve pop if they want, which I doubt that crowd's going to want to see. But I mean, they were just flagrantly just violating, and I mean, the police department had interacted with them several times over the last few months. And they had ample warning and ample time to comply. And they just, I don't know what, they just flaunted it and pushed it to the limit. And,
yeah.
But I guess I think a friendly reminder might be a good idea from the DDA or from us or Becky, but I think that as far as enforcement or flagrant issues that, I mean, the Liquor Control Commission, LCC, is very attuned to dealing with those kind of issues.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm sure you guys can kind of guess. I mean, it's right at the end of our alleyway. It's like the nickel of the South Market or the South Side.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, you know, and I mean, for those things to be acted upon, there really needs to be a complaint.
Okay.
Often the police department can't be the person or the people complaining. There has to be it helps if there's another entity, and if the DDA becomes a complainant or another business, that's helpful. But you know, I think it's if the complaints come in or the situation is obvious, the police department and the LCC is more than willing to act.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to send a friendly email to, especially in lieu of what happened at the Nickel, just saying, hey, this can happen to anyone. Maybe it's time to rein it in if you're not already. It's just one of those things. I don't think, I don't think we're overreaching by doing that, because we're still trying to protect our businesses downtown. So maybe there's some people out there that are just, I don't know, maybe they don't understand for who knows what reason. I find that to be a stupid comment on my own part, but I like to think stupid sometimes. And that's probably what we should be doing as an organization every once in a while.
And I'm happy to send that email.
Awesome. Thank you. And I feel like it's a group effort too. And the DDA has put so much resource and time into showing that we care about it. And with all the signage and everything that we've provided to businesses, that I feel like all the businesses in the district should really be on board and take that stance as well. And, kind of lead by example.
Awesome.
Agreed.
I agree. Anything else, Nicole?
That's it.
Thank you. Eric, why don't we go to you?
Yeah, not a ton for me. Just would like to welcome Robert to the board. Great to have you here. And as Becky said, great to have almost a full board. But other than that, just good to being a newer member, get started on some of the committees and kind of move forward with working with the DDA board here. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Eric. How about you, Megan?
I guess same as everyone else. Welcome to Robert. And it's been with our first promotions meeting. It was so much fun to just see all the events that are coming up and different new ideas. And I'm just excited to be a part of them.
Awesome. Thank you. Robert, why don't you go?
All right. Well, I gave you my little spiel at the beginning. It was nice to be here today and get a feel for how things operate, and just looking forward to contributing in the future.
Well, thank you so much. I will say, first off, thank you to Robert for joining the board. The one thing I can say about this board, and I'm sure Mike will agree, is we have a lot of enthusiasm here, and it's good to see, especially as we try to make some changes. And during COVID times when things are so difficult, it's good to have all the enthusiasm. So I'm all for bringing that, and I'm sure Becky is too. I would ask Becky to, if she could, to email Robert just a rundown of the committees. That way we can make sure that he's able to choose 2 different committees that he would like to be a part of. And thankfully, Robert got to see 4 different committee reports today. Probably gets a little bit of a background, but I don't know if we're short on any committees, but we might want to steer him in those directions if that's the case also. But other than that, I really don't have anything further to say. I appreciate you all for jumping on. We didn't get done by 8:30, but we got done by 9. Unless anyone's got anything else to say, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
I'm going to say 9 o'clock is still a record.
Good. That's what I like to hear. We talked a lot. Becky should be happy.
I'm very happy. Thank you all.
Good. Take care, guys. Have a great day.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.